Good afternoon, Sir Ken. I am Pat Cartasano Lukay-Lukay, the leader of Group 4, and this afternoon we are talking about Jamaah Islamiyah. So this afternoon, I want you to close your eyes and imagine Indonesia. For sure, you would probably ended up picturing things like luxurious resorts. Of course, it has something to do with beaches. It has something to do with numerous islands. Their cultural heritage, maybe, right? Or its people, or maybe their food. Those things that I have mentioned are actually the reasons why people would like to keep coming back in Indonesia, or people would like to visit Indonesia in the future. However, those things were once shattered in Indonesia in early 2000s. Indonesia's tranquility basically was once shattered in early 2000s. Would you believe that? The bottom line here is that what's the reason why they did all of these things? What's the reason? Who's the person behind all of these things, all of these events, all of these happenings? So we are not referring to a single person, but we are referring to a group of individuals. Yes, they are a group of individuals and they are called Jamaah Islamaya. So Jamaah Islamaya is a Islamist organization, specifically a network or group that has a lot of members now operating across various countries in Southeast Asia. And Jama'a literally means community or group. Islamia means Islamic. So the name literally means Islamic group. So basically, this group has branches, has members, has leaders, but they are not a single person, but they are a group of individuals, and that is Jama'a Islamaya. So to further elaborate what is Jama'a Islamaya, so let's take a look sa ato a screen right here. No, it says here that a Southeast Asian militant extremist organization. What do we mean by militant extremist organization? So it is a militant extremist organization. Basically, it is a group, no, with extreme beliefs that uses violence or armed actions to force their goals against often against the government or civilians. And Jamaah Islamiyah fits this description. Sorry. Because first and foremost, they use violence and attacks. No, Mariel Naenge will later elaborate those notable activities and events. Second, their beliefs are extreme and radical. What do we mean they oppose Western influence? Because they believe that it will corrupt the mindset of the people. Third one, they are an organization with leadership, with training, with funding, with resources, no, making their group or network more dangerous across Southeast Asia. Second one, it seeks to establish an Islamist state across Southeast Asia. So they believe, Manggot, that the region should be united under a strict Islamic influence or a strict Islamic principle, no? Um, and it resulted that they opposed secular governments, they opposed Western influence, and they think creating an Islamic state is the only way to restore what they see as pure Islamic society. And third one, known for links to Al Qaeda. So Jamaah Islamiyah is known for its links to Al Qaeda, no, for a very long time, because both of them, ang God, if we are looking for their common denominator, both of them, ang God, have the same extremist ideology, no. And there are some articles said that Jamaah Islamaya was trained in Afghanistan, no, and they helped together. They helped each other, carrying out and planning attacks. So Al Qaeda funded Jamaah Islamiyah when it comes to their trainings, when it comes to their, they also guide Jamaah Islamiyah. They also help Jamaah Islamiyah making their organization dangerous and stable across Southeast Asia. And now let's proceed to the origin of Jamaah Islamiyah. We are still in the background of Jamaah Islamiyah. So it was founded in the late 1980s to early 1990s during a period of political tension and religious activism in Indonesia, no? And it was established by Abdullah Bakar Bashir and Abdullah Sonkar, two prominent clerics who were deeply involved in Islamist movements. So their teachings, their leadership shaped the group's ideological direction or ideological perspective. So Jama'ah's origin can be traced to Islamist movement that emerged in response to political repression under Indonesia's Suharto regime. So many political leaders at that time felt that they were caged, um, they were restricted and sought ways to escape and expand their influence. So that's why they believed, Bashar and Sunkar believed that by creating an organization, by forming an organization or by forming a network was the only way to pursue their goal of making the region united under a strict Islamic principle. So over time, this small movement or this small organization evolved into a large one, evolved into a more dangerous, evolved into a more prominent and powerful organization.
Okay, I will now proceed to discuss the notable activities. So, what prior attacks has Jemaah Islamiyah been linked to? The group of individuals affiliated with it is thought to be tied to several terrorist plots. Among them are the following. First, we have the October 2005 Bali suicide bombings. What happened here is that suicide bombers attacked tourist areas in Bali, specifically their restaurants and markets, which killed over 20 individuals and left over 129 injured. Why it matters? It's because it showed Jemaah Islamiyah's continuing ability to strike even after many leaders were arrested. It targeted civilians and tourists to gain international attention. Next, we have the Australian embassy bombing in Jakarta that happened on September 2004. A suicide car bomb exploded outside the Australian embassy, which killed 3 individuals and left over 100 injured. It demonstrates that Jemaah Islamiyah's intent to attack foreign targets, especially allies of the US Australian, was chosen because of its support in counterterrorism efforts. Next, we have the August 2003 JW Marriott Hotel bombing. What happened here is that a car bomb exploded outside the Marriott Hotel in Jakarta, which killed 12 individuals. It targeted a symbol of Western business presence, aiming to disrupt the economic activity in Indonesia. Next, we have the October 2002 Bali nightclubbing. For your information, this is one of the Jemaah Islamiyah's deadliest attack, which killed over 202 individuals, mostly foreign tourists, especially Australians. It brought so much global attention by Southeast Asian terrorism. Next, we have the December 2000 church bombings in Indonesia. A coordinated series of bombings on churches during Christmas Eve, which killed 18 individuals. It showed Jemaah Islamiyah's sectarian motive attacking Christians, causing religious tensions. Next, we have the December 2000 Manila bombings. A series of bombs exploded in Metro Manila, which killed 22 individuals. This shows Jemaah Islamiyah's presence beyond Indonesia and its cooperation with local extremist groups in the Philippines. So, Jemaah Islamiyah was not only responsible for successful bombings, they also had several attacks that were foiled or prevented by authorities. One of the major example is the Singapore plot in 2001. Jemaah Islamiyah's members planned to bomb the US, Australian, and British embassies, but the operation was discovered before they could act. Another example is their early involvement in the 1995 Bojinka plot, which aimed to bomb 11 US airplanes flying across Asia. This could have killed thousands, but the plan was uncovered. So, these failed or attempted attacks show that Jemaah Islamiyah had wide regional networks and aimed to target not just Indonesia but the entire Southeast Asian region. That's all for my part.
Now, let's tackle about Jemaah Islamiyah in the Philippines or JI in the Philippines. So the first one is militant cell operating in the Philippines as part of its Southeast Asia network. So JI is an extremist group active here in the Philippines. But for the information of everyone, its influence and activities are not only limited to one country. This is because it has connection to a larger network in Southeast Asia. And with this connection, they're able to share resources, coordinate attacks, and most especially, they're able to maintain communications with the other militant groups. Second, we have collaborates with local extremist groups including Abu Sayyaf to plan and facilitate attacks. So JI, they work together with the local groups named or like Abu Sayyaf. Of course, this is to carry out violent attacks. So with their collaboration, they're able to share knowledge, no? Knowledge, manpower, uh, logical support, which this three is very very important no with their in their collaboration. Okay, this would really make their operations more effective, and with their collaboration or with this collaboration, they're able to strengthen their reach and impact in our country, which is the Philippines. Third, recruits and trains members for extremist objectives. So Jemaah Islamiyah, they recruit people. So they recruit people who are sympathetic to their cause. And then those new members, of course, they will undergo training operations practically and ideologically, of course, to support their extremist operations. So, why are they recruiting people? So, of course, they're recruiting people to ensure that the group has a continuous supply of committed operatives for their attacks. Lastly, we have conducted limited training in southern Philippines, including bomb making and weapons handling. So JI has run small scale training programs in the southern part of the Philippines. So these sessions focus on bomb making and handling weapons, which gives their new members a practical skills for their attacks. So it was also stated here that it's only a limited training, but although it's just a limited training, this training could increases the group's ability to carry out violent attacks or violent actions. So why did Jemaah Islamiyah conducted these activities in the Philippines? So of course, to elaborate, Jemaah Islamiyah conducted all of these activities here in our country or the Philippines to reinforce and of course expand its extremist groups.
Hi everyone, I am Ziandel Ruiz and today I'm going to talk about the current threat level of Jemaah Islamiyah or JI. So, the current threat level of JI, we can say that it is moderate na lang or not as dangerous as before. Why? Because on June 30, 2024 marks the day that this group announced their disbandment. What led them to disband? So we can have three factors that explain why this group became weak and announced their disbandment. So, the first one is the intense counter-terrorism pressed by the Indonesian authorities. Second is the protection of key assets. And the third one would be the influence of intellectuals. So the first one, intense counter-terrorism pressed by the Indonesian authorities, is really helpful in preventing any violence because the Indonesian government became very strict in fighting against terrorism, they made a special police unit called Densus 88, whose main job is to hunt and fight or arrest all terrorists. So the Indonesian authorities kept arresting JI leaders and members for many years. Because of them, it made them hard to operate and execute any plans. The Indonesian authorities also cut their money sources and investigate all businesses that are connected to the JI. So without money, they can no longer recruit or they can no longer train and even plan any attacks. And the authorities also became very vigilant in their religious schools. Now the authorities monitored all the religious schools, that they watch what's the lesson being taught there. They monitored closely the teachers, students, all the stuffs in there to prevent an extremist ideas from spreading. As a result of all these actions made by the Indonesian authorities, the JI became very weak. They could no longer fight or even plan big attacks. This pressure eventually leads the leaders to give up violence, surrender, and even announce that the group was being disbanded. And let's go to the second one, protection of key assets. So, because of the hard pressure pressed by the Indonesian authorities, the JI group faced a dilemma wherein between they will cooperate with the authorities and preserve their assets such as their schools, or they will continue their terrorist way and they will be totally vanished, including all their boot camps, their infrastructures, and their schools. So, because of that, they give up the violence and they choose and they pledge to abide with the Indonesian law so that they can keep their schools running and continue teaching, but in a peaceful way. And the last one would be the influence of the intellectuals. So there are other members in the group that they still believe in them, that they can still continue to preach the religion, they can still create Islamic State in a peaceful way. So they give up violence and choose to be more peaceful in doing their actions. But it does not stop there, because while in their disbandment, there are other members in that group who disagreed about it. And because of that, ideas may still spread. And yes, it is still considered a security risk in Southeast Asia, but in a lower level than before. So it is still something that Southeast Asia needs to monitor, because part of the group or some of its ideas may still cause problems. And so, even though that JI leaders officially announced their disbandment, there are other members who disagreed about it. And because of those individuals, risks could still be remain. There are still possible risks to be identified of. First one is the small extremist group may form. Because of those individuals who still believe that they could still do their actions in violent way, they can still create or form a small group which is harder to detect because gamay ra sila, but at the same time, since gamay man sila, not much of an impact. So the authorities, the Indonesian authorities, are still working on them. And the second one is the lone wolf attack. When we say lone wolf, this is the individual Jude. Someone who is alone, without orders from the big group. So they still continue to plan attacks, even though sila ra isa, they still continue to spread ideas, even though sila ra isa. So the third one is the radicalization through all networks. So even if the JI group is not anymore active, through old connections like its former teachers, members, including its community leaders, may still spread an extremist ideas to the new people. So the group itself may be weak, but the belief can continue to spread because the old networks is still there. Let's proceed with the last one, the sharing skills with other militant groups. So many members in JI group have experience in bomb making, military-like training, and even an effective recruiting. So those individuals who disagreed about the disbandment, they tend to share their skills to the other militant groups. And even if the JI itself is weak, it could still be dangerous because it makes the other militant groups stronger than before. That's it. I hope you learned something.